After just 5 years since its establishment, the Katie Doherty Veterans Village has become more than just housing for women veterans. The 14-unit permanent housing community has on-site services to help women veterans achieve stability and independence. The nonprofit's cooperative model has become one other organizations wish to emulate. The village is named after Soldier On consultant Katie Doherty, who has played a crucial role in transforming Soldier On's Women's Veterans Program.
This is a big day for all of us, especially for one person here, Katie Doherty, who we're here to celebrate. Certainly not just this building. This is just a representative or a symbol of all that she accomplished and all that the impact that she's had on this agency, and most importantly, the veterans, the female veterans, the women who have been through our agencies.
Noah Coolidge, the State Housing Equity Resilience and Outreach Services Director, said that this property in the veterans housing world is unique.
It has this model where there really is a sense of ownership in the housing and a sense of community. And I think that's what's so at the heart of Soldier On's work and everything they do in building community and in just creating that blanket and the layers of blankets of support, I think is so critical.
Coolidge recognized Soldier On's incredible work in outreach, support, and case management. He said providing housing to veterans is more than just handing the keys to a unit over. To ensure stability, it also includes food, transportation for medical treatments, and fostering skills for independent living. Community involvement is a crucial element of this initiative.
In 2012, when I was leaving the Green Center, I had met Jack and I had met Bruce and I had met Mike Hagmar and a few other of the staff here at Soldier On. So I had a basic knowledge of what was being done here. I knew it was something out of the ordinary. So in 2012, Jack asked me to go to the Northampton campus and look at the shelter that we were doing there for the women. It was the only program we had on the VA campus over there. He asked me to do a needs assessment and to see what I thought were the good strengths of the program and the things that could be improved upon. Jack's instructions were, look at the program and tell me exactly what you think. Honestly, I have never missed an opportunity to give my opinion. So I happily went over the mountain on Route 9 from Lenox to Northampton and visited the program on this massive VA campus. It was so big and our program was so small. I formed an opinion. I sat down. I sat in on meetings. I met the women. I met the staff. I looked at what was being done. I looked at all the hours. I looked at everything. I looked at what Dr. Cahill was doing. I looked at everything. And I wrote a very beautiful 42-page review of what I saw were the good things and the bad things and the strengths and the weaknesses of the program. And believe me when I say, there were so many good things going on. The women's program was small. It definitely had its own feeling. It had its own passion. I knew that there was a lot of possibility there. The commitment of all Soldier On employees was so prevalent. I did think that the utilization was low and the recidivism rate were too high, because I always look at the data. What that meant was that we weren't filling all the beds, and I knew that there were many more women who needed help. And the women that were leaving our program were relapsing and coming back. The recidivism was so high. And I thought that we could change both of those demographics. Because I tend to be a little bossy, when I wrote my report, at the end of it, I just kind of stuck in this whole outline of what a perfect program would look like. Mind, body, spirit. You know, the whole Propala kind of, thing. And I said to Jack and Bruce, I said, I think I want to do a program that my friends would like to be in and my sisters would like to be in. And that's what we should do. We should incorporate mind, body, spirit in a holistic way and do this for these women. I kept listening, I kept going to groups, I kept learning. I learned that these beautiful women had navigated unimaginable circumstances and had achieved incredible milestones. Their triumphs their disasters, their joys and their sorrows, not only for them, but for their families and friends, were so acutely real and moving that I couldn't walk away. After my report was done, I kept going over to the campus, and it was really almost an hour from my home. But I sat in on groups, I talked to more women, I learned to understand what they had gone through. To make a long story short, Jack and Bruce then asked me to come on board and incorporate mind, body, and spirit into the program. At that time, Soldier On was developing many of these units of permanent housing for the men. But honestly, I didn't think that there would ever be that possibility for the women. Women have profoundly impacted my life in ways I cannot even imagine or describe. But this was really different. I, of course, said yes to Jack's proposal, but I didn't really think that they would give me everything that I needed. But I quickly realized that they were committed to completing the program, and I also felt intuitively that there were other people in the world that would want to help us, that would want to contribute to this cause. And all we have to do is ask, and I have never been afraid to ask for something for someone I care about. We here at Soldier On consider our work to be a sacred obligation. It's a calling. It's not a job. We go beyond the statistics and the labels. We go above and beyond the cold hard facts, and we ask our veterans what they want in their lives. As I listened, I heard a great deal of hope. Hope despite the horror of their journey, the setbacks, the loss of faith. The support was always there, and the hope was there as well. Make no mistake about this, though. This work is hard. This work is very hard. And sometimes this work is heartbreaking. When I interviewed new people to come into the program to add to the staff, one of the first things I said to them was, if you want to work here, you need to understand this place will break your heart. We can't help everybody, but we do care in the dignity of every single veteran. And we believe as an agency to a moral code of importance of diversity, equality, and inclusion. Now more than ever, that needs to become the fabric of our lives.
The reason I'm standing here today, sober and in my right mind, is because of the time and effort Soldier On put in and invested in me in my recovery from alcoholism. When I arrived at the Soldier On Women's Program in Leeds in 2018, I was lost, I was broken, I was full of shame, guilt, and a lot of remorse. I'd spiraled a long way down from the development director of a national AIDS organization in Washington, D.C., and a public policy consultant for the National AIDS Trust in London, to being unemployable and homeless. I knew sobriety during the first 5 of those years. I first came into AA in '87, and I put together 5 years. That was the longest time. But then, as everyone knows who's familiar with 12-step programs, I stopped going to meetings and I drank. I want to talk about the time I spent at the women's program in Leeds, specifically about the moral recognition therapy that Sarah and Alexis, they broke me in the most amazing way. And anyone who thinks the 4th and 5th step of AA is hard work, it was a cakewalk compared to what I went through in that therapy. It changed me. They opened up things that I didn't want to talk about. They knew that I was carrying a heavy burden and that I needed to let it go, but I didn't know how. And I had to stand up and talk about those things. But Sarah and Alexis, they were stern, they were serious, and they didn't let me skip anything. They were so thorough in dissecting me and my emotions and my character defects. But they also talked about my assets, things that I was good at, things that I was worthy of that I had completely forgotten about. I am forever grateful for Sarah. Alexis is no longer here, but I want to thank you so much. That was the most amazing therapy I have ever been through in my life. When I was at the women's program in Leeds, I took advantage of everything that the women's program offered. House driver? Yes. Committee member? Yes. Go pick up the farm chair with Vicky? Yes. And they gave me a job. I was introduced actually to daily meditation when I was there. We had morning meetings. Again, Sarah was part of that, and Steph Ovid. And I have continued that practice to today. As of today, I have had 3,480 days, consecutive days of meditation.
So as many of you know, housing is a major topic for our city and the communities across Massachusetts. People are struggling to find quality, affordable housing. And as a community, we need to provide housing options that meet the variety of needs, including support for emergency sheltering, transitional housing, housing with supportive services, and permanent housing, including both affordable and market rate. The city has been working diligently with community partners to support the creation of new housing. It's important to note that the city would have not had that ability to make such investment in these projects if it wasn't for the funding that we received through the ARPA monies. About $9 million of ARPA funding was designated to support these projects and the support of community partners. They include the Pearl, the shelter on Finn Street within the First United Methodist Church, which provides 40 beds, bathrooms with showers, and access to a commercial kitchen. Terrace 592, formerly known as White Terrace, will be opening very soon with 41 affordable units. 9 units at the permanent supportive housing at Zion Lutheran Church, along with 28 units on West Housatonic Street as new construction. A drop-in resource center at Zion Lutheran Church that will provide amenities such as mailboxes, a quiet lounge area, tech area for computers and phone charging stations, a commercial kitchen, community room, laundry, lockers, bathrooms with showers, and office and consulting space. This resource center is fully funded through the city's ARPA funding, and no state funding existed for this type of model. In addition to this, the city is working closely with Allegheny Construction Company as they undertake a multi-million-dollar renovation of the historic Wright Building and the former Jim's House of Shoes. 35 units of housing will be created in the upper levels with 7 affordable rent units. This project is made possible through both state and federal funding. Soldier On is stepping up to do their part in helping ease the burden of finding affordable quality housing, especially for both men and women who have served our country. Back in 2010, Soldier On opened 39 units as part of the Gordon H. Mansfield Veterans Community. 10 years later, in 2020, the year that was a challenge for many of us, the Katie Doherty Village opened. It's remarkable that even during COVID, we can still find a way to make progress. This property houses 14 one-bedroom units designated for women veterans, offering to serve as a place for independent living with a supportive environment. But Soldier On understands that it takes much more than just providing a space for someone to live. You must also provide resources for them to succeed. On-site support services have been proven to be a significant positive impact on the ability of those experiencing or at risk of being homeless.
Just what a difference a mayor makes, right? From Jimmy Roberto to Dan Bianchi to Linda Tyre to Pete Marchetti, every single mayor has supported this vision at Soldier On. And it's when you have strong local partners working together with state partners, working together with our federal partners, working together with organizations like Soldier On, that is when we do our very best work. And there's no greater model than what's right behind us right now.